The Chargers have a giant decision on who their next offensive coordinator is going to be, and I think that Mike McDaniel is the clear-cut number one option.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Droegemeier, and we've been covering the Chargers now for 10 seasons, but this is our 8th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day as part of the number one sports podcast network. David, what do we got today?
Well, the Chargers let go of Greg Roman, so that means they need to find a new offensive coordinator for Justin Herbert and this Chargers offense. Mike McDaniel and those exciting, explosive offenses from Miami would definitely be very enticing for Justin Herbert, and obviously Brian Daboll, another guy to look at. And you got to look at the relationships whenever it comes to any coaching hires. That's why you got to look at Shane Day, the Chargers' current QB coach, and former offensive line coach and assistant Frank Smith, and the up-and-coming guys like a Nate Scheelhaase.
Yeah, and we're going to get into the top 6 options for the Chargers right now, or at least 6 of the best options that they have available to them. But Crossover Thursday is presented by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. And David, I'm very excited to be offensive coordinator shopping. I mean, one of the worst things about the ending after the Texans playoff loss was that basically they were running it back with the same group offensively, and it was hard to kind of get super excited about that because of the deficiencies we had already seen even in the first year of Greg Roman. But now the Chargers have a huge decision to make, and I think there's a lot of pressure on them to get it right, which is why I hope that they cast a wide net in this search and interview a lot of people for this job to see what the vision for Justin Herbert is going to be. But one of the guys I think that could do a pretty good job of that is Mike McDaniel, the former Miami Dolphins head coach, a guy who led one of the most explosive, best passing offenses in the league over the last several seasons with Tua Tagovailoa. He is definitely a guy right now at the top of my list as far as potential offensive coordinators go.
Yeah, and a guy who has a lot of experience. He was a run game coordinator, also an offensive coordinator for the 49ers offense when they ran one of the top offenses in the league. And what he was able to do, crafting an offense to get the most out of Tua, was very, very impressive. We all know what the arm strength was, but they did a great job of getting the ball out of his hands quickly, getting the ball into the hands of playmakers, and having a lot of easy type of reads, a lot of big throws, and a lot of explosive plays that were all mixed in, while also having an effective rushing attack as well. I mean, you had some really good running backs there. I mean, Devon Achane is a beast, and he really, really excelled in that type of rushing attack that Mike McDaniel authored. So there's a lot of reasons why you can easily see why you would want to see a guy like Justin Herbert orchestrating an offense that has some more easy buttons like Mike McDaniel is able to provide.
Yeah, and just, something that feels more innovative and creative and something we'd be kind of begging for. But yeah, I mean, obviously Dolphins head coach 2022 to 2025. Also, before the time with the 49ers, was an Atlanta assistant when they went to the Super Bowl, and was also part of the Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, and Matt LaFleur coaching staff way back when in Washington too. But I do think the one big box he checks obviously is an experienced play caller that also doesn't mind running the football. To your point, like you said, turned Devon Achane into one of the best running backs in the league. But also, the Dolphins twice were top 4 in passing yards, at first in 2023. So we've seen them lead one of the top passing attacks, and I think that's what you're looking for, right? Someone who will use Justin Herbert the way that he should be used. And I thought that was one of the only things with Greg Roman, or one of the big things with Greg Roman when he was hired, is like it feels like you hired Greg Roman for, to improve your running game, but not necessarily to improve your quarterback. But
yeah,
the big thing with Mike McDaniel is if he's going to become available, because there are a ton of head coaching spots out there. But if he doesn't end up taking one of them, yeah, he has to be top on the list, and there's going to be lots of suitors. I know that with the Eagles, they've already interviewed him or planning to interview him, and he also has interviewed for the Detroit Lions offensive coordinator job too. As far as like weapons go, those are two teams that, definitely are comparable and have, really top options as far as weapons that they could offer to someone like a Mike McDaniel, who, if he doesn't get a head coach job, will be looking to kind of try to springboard himself back into that position. And what I wonder is just, do the Chargers need the speed that they had down there to kind of run that offense, or would it look a lot different with Justin Herbert at quarterback? Because to your point, it did seem like a lot of what they did there were to try and maximize Tua Tagovailoa, but you have to think that if he was with the Chargers, the offense would look, still innovative, but maybe a little different.
Yeah, I mean, a different set of challenges for sure, but also different weapons to be able to use and a different skill set with a quarterback to be able to use. I mean, a quarterback that's more mobile than Tua, that has a stronger arm than Tua, that can access pretty much any place on the football field, and also different types of weapons. Obviously, you don't have the same level of speed that they had over there with Tyreek Hills and the different receivers that they had, a lot more speed, guys that were running 4.2, 4.3, and not like the Chargers don't have some of that. Obviously, Ladd McConkey's a pretty quick wide receiver, and the Chargers have Darius Davis, and they use him on offense occasionally as well. But different quarterback with different abilities, which I think would open up some more opportunities for him to get even more in his bag as an offensive coordinator.
Totally, and I think some people thought kind of his offense might have been figured out a little bit, but I think more of that was people maybe
just limited
Tua out a little bit more than they were figuring out.
There you go,
Mike McDaniel. But I think another big name out there, David, that could be a potentially in the running at least for the Chargers OC job, and seems less likely to get a head coaching job is Brian Daboll, whose main calling card, claim to fame was the development of Josh Allen. And I think when you see what the version of Josh Allen is now, you'd say, okay, from where he started, yeah, I definitely at least want to hear what that guy has to say about what his plan would be with Justin Herbert.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, once upon a time, people thought that Josh Allen was a project. He was far from a finished product and far from the perennial MVP candidate that we see year in and year out today. That definitely took some time and took some development, and Brian Daboll was critical in that development. And behind the guidance of him, he was able to set new franchise records for passing touchdowns, yards, passer rating, also increased Allen's completion percentage, tied with NFL record for 13 players with receiving touchdowns, led the league with wide receiver receptions and yards, and saw wide receivers total league high of 312 catches. So similar skill sets there with Justin Herbert and obviously Josh Allen, with Josh Allen being the more prolific runner, but you can know that Justin Herbert has some of those same characteristics. So it would be very interesting to see what Brian Daboll would be able to do with his offense, who's more kind of QB friendly with, trying to get the matchups right, trying to get wide receivers on safeties and linebackers, right? Using misdirection, using the heavy personnel, which we've already seen the Chargers like to use. And that's kind of a Jim Harbaugh kind of calling card as well.
Yeah. And again, it'll just depend what they're looking for. Is previous play calling experience a must for them, or will they try to be a little bit more innovative and trying to find the next great play caller we haven't seen yet? Because Brian Daboll, at least could just be one of those guys who was a much better offensive coordinator than a head coach. Same with Mike McDaniel, right? Mike McDaniel, all you started hearing towards the end, and which happens when you're on a sinking ship, and we saw it with the Chargers. You start hearing stuff. Players are late for meetings. There's no accountability. Some guys aren't meant to be a head coach, right, and are better. And this is a guy that, was in competition with Brandon Staley to get the Chargers head coach job back in 2021 with Brian Daboll. But also, helped Daniel Jones look competent. Daniel Jones led them to a playoff game and a playoff win under Brian Daboll. And if you can win a playoff game with Daniel Jones, I promise you can win a playoff game with Justin Herbert. So I think he has all of those things going for him now. On the other side of that, what Daniel Jones was able to do in Indianapolis this year probably takes a little bit of that shine away. But I would say also Brian Daboll helped give Jackson Dart enough easy options to beat the Chargers this year. One thing, a good point I saw brought up by Stephen Haglund, though, was just about Brian Daboll being more of the contentious kind of personality, right? And will that mesh with what Jim Harbaugh wants to do, or will it be more contentious? That part's hard to say, but I do think it's not out of the job or out of the question that he gets a head coaching job in this cycle, because again, there's 10 openings. Maybe the dominoes start to fall now that tonight as we're recording this, we saw John Harbaugh hired by the Giants, and we'll see if the next guy that we're going to talk about is going to be going with him. And I hope he doesn't, because I think another really good option for this team is Todd Monken. And I know a lot of people might not want to hear that, because the last retread they got from Baltimore didn't work out very well. But I would say that Todd Monken, I think, brings a lot to the table that Chargers fans want to see built into this offense for Justin Herbert. So we're going to get into him, and also if Shane Day is a real candidate, and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. New year, new systems. This is the time when a lot of us look at the messier parts of how we run our business and think there has to be a better way. And there is. Streamlining your communication is one of the quickest upgrades that you can make. And that's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Q-U-O, the smarter way to run your business communications. Because when your team is reachable, organized, and communicating in one place, you're not just working cleaner, you're creating more opportunities to connect with customers. And I love how simple Quo makes everything. Everyone sees the full conversation thread, which makes replies more fast and more personal, and it works right from your phone or computer so that you can even keep your existing number if you want to. And Quo's smart AI tools automatically log calls, summarize conversations, and highlight next steps so details never slip through the crack. It's no surprise that Quo is the #1 rated business phone system on G2, trusted by more than 90,000 businesses, from solo operators to growing teams. Make this year where no opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo for free, plus get 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/LockedOnNFL. That's QUO.com/LockedOnNFL. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. Hey guys, the draft pick positions are set and so many teams are looking for their franchise quarterback. Did you ever wish to become a pro quarterback, getting drafted first overall by the Chargers? Well, now you can. There's a mobile game just for you called Ultimate QB Football Legend. In this game, you step into the cleats of a #1 draft pick quarterback, and it's your job to lead your team to greatness to help turn a failing franchise into a dynasty. Never heard of that before? This is the #1 QB career mode game on mobile app stores, and it introduces the most realistic environment with full career control. One of the things I love about it, Ultimate QB is totally free to play, has no ads, and works 100% offline. Perfect for when you want to sneak a quick game in or two on the go, or if you're somewhere where you don't have, service or on a plane, wherever the case may be. All you have to do, head over to ultimate-qb.com. That's ultimateqb.com, or search Ultimate QB in your app store. And we've got something special for you guys. Use the promo code LOCKEDON, all caps, in the game store to get a free boost at the start of your career. Ultimate QB, football legend, QB1, it's your legacy. David, we have some more offensive coordinator shopping to do, and I want to talk about this next guy who, as far as connections go, probably makes the most sense, right? Because what did we see the Chargers do with the first offensive coordinator that they hired? They went and got John Harbaugh's old offensive coordinator, and Jim's as well. But one thing we have seen is these two guys will share coaches with the best of them. I mean, Jesse Minter was once a John Harbaugh coach before he went to Jim Harbaugh at Michigan.
Yeah.
If you're looking for, okay, hey, what seems super obvious that we should definitely entertain and could be a realistic possibility, I think that this is something you would absolutely look at, because we're going to talk about Todd Monken, who was most recently the offensive coordinator for the Ravens over the last several years and wasn't fired, but John Harbaugh was fired, so now he's got to go as well. So I think this is someone that I know fans are probably a little hesitant to jump back into the Harbaugh tree and to take another kind of retread like this. But man, it was hard for me not to like what Todd Monken brings to the table and would potentially bring to this offense.
Yeah, I mean, not only did he have success as an offensive coordinator in the NFL, but he had a lot of success as an offensive coordinator in college as well. During his tenure as an offensive coordinator at Georgia, from 20 to 22, he helped produce back-to-back national championship seasons in 2021 and 22. In 2021, Georgia's offense ranked 9th in points per game at 38.6. Also, in the NFL, when he was the offensive coordinator for the Ravens, Lamar Jackson won his second MVP award in 2023. And Justin Herbert would look really good with an MVP award. And also, I kind of found this as kind of some of his philosophies that he believes in as far as, from the offensive side. Don't turn it over, be explosive, score touchdowns in the red zone, be good on third down, don't have a lot of lost yardage plays, and have an athletic quarterback who can make off-schedule plays. Well, Justin Herbert is absolutely an athletic quarterback that can make off-schedule plays. Check, check, check. So this is a guy that really helped develop Lamar Jackson's passing ability, and he's a much, much better passing quarterback under Todd Monken than he ever was under Greg Roman. So this is definitely a guy that you can see why, if you look at it, not only with the relationships, but with his philosophies on the offensive side, why it would make a lot of sense for him to be an offensive coordinator for the Chargers.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, top 4 scoring offense his first 2 seasons with the Ravens. I mean, even in a year where Lamar missed 4 games and had to exit a couple others, right? Yep. 11th in 2025, which would be better than any Greg Roman offense over the last 2 years, of course. And also would have better playoff success had Mark Andrews not dropped that ball. Him and Lamar Jackson both obviously a little bitter about that. But I mean, this is also another guy that could get a head coaching job in this cycle and has already been interviewed for several, but more than that, his old boss, John Harbaugh, just got the job as the Giants head coach, and they boast a young, interesting, skill position group as well. I think it kind of, a lot of it depends on how you feel about Jackson Dart, but you get Malik Neighbors, which obviously one of our favorites. You get Cam Scatterbo, another one of my favorites. 2 guys I desperately wanted drafted to the Chargers, but I am happy, obviously, with the Chargers getting Omarion Hampton, but yeah, I mean, I think the other thing too is like you really kind of see a coach tested when they have a backup quarterback. And this is a team that, once Tyler Huntley took over as that backup, they were 2-0 and stayed in the playoff race and gave themselves a chance to win in week 18 and get in the playoffs. So I understand the hesitance for just anyone trying to get as far away from, what they have done before.
Sure.
But there was a reason why the Ravens went from Greg Roman to Todd Monken. And it was, to modernize their offense. He does run a very modern offense. Maybe working the collegiate game helped with that a lot. But we just saw Lamar Jackson have 41 touchdowns in 2024. A lot of Greg Roman, what he did with, Lamar and him winning that first MVP was a lot because he was running the ball for, 1,200 yards for them. So, yeah, I think this is a much different look. Someone that has worked in the family, as they say before. But, yeah, I like Todd Monken a lot. If he doesn't follow him to New York, if he doesn't get his own head coaching job, I think he should be one of the top options out there. Another one that was brought up by Daniel Popper that really wasn't on my radar was Chargers quarterback coach Shane Day. And I want to talk about him today, who's interesting because even though, he's been with the Chargers on multiple stints at this point, he's handpicked potentially by Justin Herbert to be the quarterback coach, but he also has Shanahanian ties, right? Shanahan's quarterback coach in 2019 and 2020. Also was the Texans' senior assistant and on offense in 2023, which happened to be C.J. Stroud's Rookie of the Year season. He has a resume, David. Like I think the Chargers absolutely should be interviewing him. Like he deserves that at the very least.
For sure. I mean, I think that's just one of those natural progression type of situations, right? Whenever you're a quarterback's coach, usually the next place that you go from quarterback's coach is offensive coordinator, right?
That's how it usually goes, yeah.
So, yeah, that's the usual natural progression. And so with this, like Daniel said, you have those Shanahan coaching tree ties, right, which is kind of the offensive style that we like. And there's already a pre-established relationship with Justin Herbert. So he knows what Justin likes. He knows how Justin thinks. And probably can put an offense together in collaboration with Justin that they would really enjoy running out there. Obviously, you have the other drawbacks of what it would look like from an image perspective for the Chargers to hire Shane Day as the offensive coordinator.
And like to me, he's not my top option by any means, but like I don't have like a huge problem with it if they think that's, the best thing. It wouldn't be my top pick, but only if they still do an extensive search, right? Like if they were to just tomorrow come out and be like, we've promoted Shane Day from quarterback coach to offensive coordinator, I'd be pretty annoyed by that, right? Because like, I think one of the things that this brings you, like the rare opportunity this brings you, is to get some of the top offensive minds from around the NFL and have them tell you what their plan would be for Justin Herbert. Yeah. And more importantly, how you would win in the playoffs with Justin Herbert. So like, even if you're not hiring these guys, like it's such a good chance to get all of these guys in and hear all these different ideas, right? Yeah. And for Jim Harbaugh to be able to sit in on that, for Justin Herbert to potentially be able to sit in on that. So I think that is the one thing where it's like, okay, Shane Day, you could talk me into the resume for him because obviously he did great work with C.J. Stroud. Justin Herbert's been really good in the regular season over the last 2 years, right? And so that's something that also has to be accounted for too, especially he was great with him in 2021 when Justin Herbert had his best season with 40-plus touchdowns and throwing for 5,000 yards. So it's like we've seen the best Justin Herbert under Shane Day. But like the other thing is too is If he doesn't get the job, there's a good chance the next OC wants his own quarterback coach. So this might be the only way Shane Day sticks around, is if he ends up being the offensive coordinator, because we already saw it happen to him once when the Chargers fired Joe Lombardi and brought in Kellen Moore, who wanted to bring in his own guy, Doug Nussmeier, to come be his quarterback coach. So Shane Day, I get it as an option, but definitely something to be talked about for sure, because obviously we know the relationships. We've talked about that. But I wonder if the Chargers, how innovative they're willing to be and how risky they're going to be able to be, because there's one guy I really, really like after looking him up, and that is a guy who's only had 2 years of NFL experience. He's in the Sean McVay tree, and man, I might be sold on Nate Scheelhaase. So we're going to talk about him and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. As the new year gets going, a lot of people are trying to simplify their routines, and dinner is a big one. Between busy workdays, cold winter nights, and packed schedules, having an easy, reliable dinner plan makes a huge difference, and that's where Home Chef comes in. Home Chef takes the stress out of cooking by delivering fresh, pre-portioned ingredients right to your door with easy-to-follow recipes that actually taste great. They're rated #1 by users of other meal kits for quality, convenience, value, taste, and recipe ease. It's easy to see why. Meals come ready to fit in your schedule, 30-minute recipes, oven-ready trays, or quick lunches, over 30 weekly options, including family-sized meals, and different dietary choices. And I know, especially now that I have a baby, I always am looking to try to get the healthiest food and have healthy options for her, and also something that's not going to take a lot of time, because I'm usually cooking her dinner and me and my wife dinner as well. But the good news is, for a limited time, Home Chef is offering our listeners 50% off their first box with free shipping and free dessert for life. Just go to homechef.com/lockedon. That's homechef.com/lockedon for 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Must be an active subscriber to receive the free dessert. If you've ever hired someone who looked good on paper but wasn't the right fit, you know how important that is. When you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for, trust Indeed sponsored jobs. Hiring? Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post on other sites. Indeed's sponsored jobs put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. If I needed to hire someone new for this show, I'd go straight to Indeed. Hopefully I won't have to replace David, but if I do, I'll be going straight to Indeed. Instead of struggling to get your job post seen, Indeed sponsored jobs helps your listing stand out and reach quality candidates faster. According to the Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed are 90% more likely to report a hire than a non-sponsored job. Spend more time interviewing candidates who check all of your boxes with less stress, less time, and more results using Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help give your job a premium placement it deserves at Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL. Just go to Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL right now and support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. Dave, there's a couple more guys I want to talk about, including one that, was put on my radar because of this surge, and I understand why he's already been in the cycle for 3 head coaching opportunities, at least at this point. And it is Rams passing game coordinator Nate Scheelhaase. Man, it's pretty impressive, what this guy has been able to do as far as rising up the ranks and getting his name on the radar to even be considered, for a head coaching position. I think tells you kind of how quickly this guy's been in the ranks, has moved up the ranks, because he's only been in the NFL since the beginning of 2024, which just seems pretty crazy. Obviously, he's in a deep playoff run right now, potentially with the Rams, so it would have to wait until that's done. But I was pretty impressed, David, on my first kind of look over of what Nate Scheelhaase has been able to do with them.
Yeah, I mean, before he jumped in with the Rams, he spent 6 seasons on the coaching staff at Iowa State in various different roles, including quarterbacks coach and offensive coordinator. And then, he made his way through the ranks with the Rams very, very quickly, moving through multiple different roles very, very quickly, taking on more responsibilities. And obviously, it's no secret what Matthew Stafford has done this year, authoring what very well could be an MVP campaign with over 4,500 passing yards, over 2,000 rushing yards, and under 15 turnovers in 2025. That is absolutely insane numbers. Like, that's getting it done at an extremely high level. Like, that's really, really good looking offense. And of course, we've seen it here with the McVay kind of coaching tree. His kind of branches have spread throughout the NFL, and you can see its influences all over the place. And it seems like Nathan Scheelhaase is one of those next branches that's getting ready to sprout.
Yeah, man. I mean, you look at some of the names. Obviously, Kevin O'Connell, Matt LaFleur, two current head coaches. Kevin O'Connell, basically known for having one of the most quarterback-friendly offenses in the league, and he's done it now with Kirk Cousins and Sam Darnold, and it's looked really good with those guys. I really like this, though, from A.J. Schulte from A to Z Sports, who kind of put in perspective what his job is. He put, in L.A., Scheelhaase was Sean McVay's play drawer, a role that other coaches like Zach Taylor and Liam Cohen once held under McVay. Now, Scheelhaase occupies the passing coordinator role, essentially coaching specific passing situations, third downs, 2-minute drills, red zone passes, and working with the offensive coordinator, quarterback coach, and wide receiver coach to design, game plan, and coordinate the team's passing attack. Very good insight into kind of what a passing game coordinator does. But I will tell you one thing. You mentioned the names, Kevin O'Connell and Liam Cohen and guys like that. Like, it's going to get my attention for sure, right? And, like, I would be lying to say that, hey, this isn't a tree I've been hoping the Chargers could potentially pick from for quite a while now, including, when the Chargers are trying to get Kevin O'Connell as their offensive coordinator and the Rams blocked it. This is the good news. Rams offensive coordinator is Mike LaFleur, who, if the Chargers were going for him, they could block that because it's a lateral move, offensive coordinator to offensive coordinator. Since this is the passing game coordinator, the Rams can't block it. Like, he still has to make the choice, but I'll tell you one thing. He already lives in L.A., so I really like that part of it.
Be a pretty smooth transition.
Yeah, and I also saw that, A.J. Schulte, which was a little surprising in the article he had for A to Z Sports about the Chargers' potential offensive coordinator candidate, said that the Chargers were looking to modernize their passing attack. So take that how you will. I mean, that's what you have to assume from the outside looking in. But like you said, does have experience calling plays at Iowa State, which I do think is a big deal for Brock Purdy. Also worked with guys like Breece Hall, Jalen Noel, Jaden Higgins, obviously a couple of draft picks from this season as well. Very enticing. Obviously, the Rams have the top passing attack in 2025, a top 10 attack in 2024 with an elderly quarterback, and Sean McVay deserves most of the credit for that. And Matthew Stafford deserves a lot of the credit for that. But if you're telling me that you could get someone like this who's been learning under that, bending the knee to Sean McVay over the last couple of years, yeah, I could be talked into that. You wouldn't have to talk me very far into it either. So like I said, he's been getting, head coaching interviews. So we'll see the availability there, but it's someone very, very firmly on my radar and someone it'd be hard for me not to get really excited for this, because if you're going from offensive assistant in 2024 to Sean McVay making you the pass game coordinator in 2025 and you're moving quickly up that organization, that's going to hold a lot of water with me, hold a lot of weight with me. So I do think he's definitely a top option. I understand why he is a top option. And yeah, I would take Nate Scheelhaase any day of the week. Let's get to one more here. Another kind of old friend, David. Frank Smith, the Dolphins offensive coordinator from 2022 to 2025, but also someone who has spent time with the Chargers and Justin Herbert.
Yep, obviously, he was with the Chargers just a few short years ago, so very, very familiar there with Frank Smith. Been in the NFL and just been coaching for a very, very long time. We're talking about 22 years, 16 at the NFL level and 6 at the collegiate level. So very, very experienced, been all over both the offensive and defensive coaching staffs throughout his tenure as a coach. And hey, in 2023, the Dolphins offense was going crazy. They had averaged over 400 yards in total offense per game for the first time since 1994. So
averaging that is crazy.
Absolutely insane. That's a ton of offense. That's getting it done at an extremely high level. So I think the thinking here between, Daniel and I was, well, hey, if you miss out on Mike McDaniel, which is a legitimate possibility, it's not a bad idea to take the guy who was directly under him and in that same offensive system and get him to be the offensive coordinator, which also helps that he already has ties to the Chargers organization.
Yeah, I mean, definitely under a different regime, obviously. So not quite the same, but someone that at least has familiarity with Justin Herbert and what they want to, what he's capable of doing at the very least. And the one big kind of drawback for him, and also for Shane Day, even Scheelhaase to a certain extent, he just hasn't been a play caller at the NFL level. But that's how it always starts, right? For the most part, to get a guy who's kind of an up and coming guy, you got to get someone who hasn't done it. But yeah, Chargers run game coordinator and O-line coach in 2021, which I believe was probably their best running season outside of, the last couple or at least last year with Greg Roman up until this point.
Yeah.
Most importantly, though, he was their offensive line coach. And I don't know if you guys remember that offensive line in 2021, but he did a really great job with them. And the other part of it was he also had the best offensive line with Justin Herbert and presided over, part of the offense when he had that 5,000-yard season. So really like that his roots are based in offensive line coaching, right? Because he was 6 years as a tight end coach for the Bears and Raiders. But before that, he was an O-line coach and assistant coach in New Orleans from 2010 to 2014, and also did it with the Chargers in 2021. So really like that. I think, offensive line would be something very important to him, and someone that we've seen set protections really well. Like the protections when Frank Smith was around was awesome. At least you knew guys were getting a hat on a hat. They didn't look surprised all of the time. And I think we all saw kind of the hit the offense took in 2022 after he left, because
very noticeable.
Yeah, and like it was rough. Like it really showed you, what he brought to the table. And part of that was Justin Herbert fracturing his rib cartilage that year, obviously, too.
Sure.
So, that was part of the reason. But like that's when we really started to kind of turn on that Joe Lombardi offense, was when Frank Smith wasn't there anymore, because the running game completely disappeared. The offensive line regressed by quite a bit that season as well. So Frank Smith, I think, has a legit case. Like, 4 years as the offensive coordinator under someone like a Mike McDaniel, that's super important. Like that's where you usually get the next offensive coordinators, right? Is you're taking guys from some tree like that, and it's just, he's not going to get a lot of the credit because Mike McDaniel was the main guy and was the play caller for them. But at the same time, like, I don't mind someone that's been learning that offense that we saw be so successful with Tua Tagovailoa getting to work with Justin Herbert, especially someone who already has some sort of a relationship with him. So Frank Smith, I think, is a legit contender for the job, or at least should definitely be interviewed. I don't see him a ton as far as like, the guys getting interviewed for things. But yeah, I'd say Frank Smith definitely deserves to be in that conversation for sure. So that's going to wrap things up for today's show. I think next week we'll get into some more of the dark horse candidates. But as always, we're the only daily Chargers podcast out there, so we'll be here when we start getting the news that the Chargers are interviewing some of these guys, and we can start getting a little deeper into what they bring to the table and start getting a little bit more excited about what this offense could look like in 2026 and beyond. But tomorrow, we didn't do our buy or sell show earlier in the week, partially because I was sick, and then, Greg Roman gets fired, so it's been kind of a whirlwind. We want to do that tomorrow. We'll get a Fan Mail Friday show in. We still have some buy or sells. If you want to give us a buy or sell, you can do that as well. We'll get into all of those tomorrow, because I know you guys have a lot of questions and storylines and overreactions to give to us. So to do that, hit us up at Locked On LAC on Twitter, at Locked On Chargers on Instagram, or our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. We also post the show to all those places every day. But the best way to make sure you don't miss is subscribing and following for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listening wherever you get your podcast from. But I know you guys have a lot to get on the show. You can also do it by calling into the voicemail line at 323-524-7924. If you want to actually get your voice on the show, make sure you do that tonight so you can be here for a Buy or Sell Fan Mail Friday show tomorrow. But a lot of exciting things right now, guys. Make sure you're back for tomorrow's show. But until then, take it easy and go Bolts.